Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky betrays the Republican Party again. What is going on with this guy? So many big stories. To help me go through those, I have Drew Allen. Drew, thank you for joining me again.
Hey, good to be here, brother.
I think this is like our fourth show together. People always enjoy your commentary and insight. Just some background. Drew works with Publius Publishing, Publius PR. You guys help some of the biggest names in America get their books and media out there. And I just appreciate everything that you do. What are your thoughts? We've got Tulsi Gabbard confirmed. Later today, we should have RFK Jr. They continue to bump Kash Patel out. But let's focus on Tulsi Gabbard. Why do you think Democrats and even Republicans were hesitant to make her the director of national intelligence? And then why on earth would Mitch McConnell betray the Republican Party and be the only Republican to vote against her?
Well, I think a lot of people have become familiar with kind of the Pentagon, right? The infamous Pentagon in the United States government, how powerful they are, how they, by the way, have, failed audits, don't pass audits, trillions of dollars, just goes into the ether. And we understand this in this military industrial complex. Stephen, I'll be honest. Before like the last 5-6 years ago, like when you said military industrial complex to me, things like that, I would just kind of roll my eyes. Yeah, it just didn't seem like, oh, no, but obviously so many of those things have been proven true. So the reason I bring that up is because Tulsi Gabbard is a disruptor. She's not somebody who's coming in. I mean, all of these people are being opposed, Stephen, for the same reason that these people would oppose Trump, right? So they're disruptors. So she's coming in. She doesn't represent the status quo. She's not going to just sign off on everything that, whether it's military defense funding and these different massive contracts and so on and so forth. It's big. And then there's other things too. Remember under the first Trump administration, right? How they went on after Michael Flynn and these people that were loyal to him. This is what Trump has figured out the second time around, right? I mean, first time he didn't come from government, so he didn't have any people he could rely upon. He made mistakes because he relied upon duplicitous individuals to recommend people. He learned from that. So Tulsi's been around. These people have been around him, and he's appointing them because he trusts them. And that's a problem for these people on the left and right who do represent the swamp, if you will. And, these people that oppose DOGE, what they're doing, uncovering corruption. I mean, how can you be opposed to that? I mean, this is the American people's, our tax dollars that are being wasted. I mean, it's disgusting what's happening, but they oppose it because they're a part of that. So that's kind of the short of why they oppose Tulsi. But I'm really excited that she's gone in there. She was a client, Stephen, and I was really rooting for her to get confirmed as well. And now that she's confirmed, I don't see how they can continue opposing really anybody else. I think this is kind of opens up the floodgates.
Yeah, I agree. I've wondered on my show, Colonel Douglas McGregor said the biggest sin that Donald Trump committed in the first term was that he threatened the flow of money to the military. So we're now finding out just how much fraud and abuse and corruption there is at USAID. Imagine when they get into a Pentagon that's failed an audit 7 times. We've spent more money on the military than probably anything else. They're going to get in there. So then the question for me is are they worried that she will find their secrets and divulge those to the American people? Or are they afraid that she'll interrupt the flow of money, or worse, that she'll do both?
Well, I think it's both. One of the primary, I think, scares for the left and rhinos, if you will, the status quo, the swamp, is that, she's going to have access to information, classified documents, all sorts of information that they've been hiding from the American people. And it will be consistent with things that we're still learning from the DOGE financial investigations, right? Identifying fraud. I mean, USAID, Stephen, there's a million examples of craziness there. But they were instrumental in funding effectively the Trump-Russia collusion coup, right? So they had this program. It was the OCCRP, organized crime corruption project, I think. And they were cited countless times as evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, right? Him being organized in some racket with Putin with his properties, which of course was not true. So this money is being used, obviously, to target the political enemies of the left and the quote unquote deep state. But it's also being used, of course, to waste the money of the American taxpayer. And, I interviewed the USAID whistleblower, Mark Moyer, and, it was astonishing what he revealed that he found. But here's the thing, right? Here's what won't happen anymore, Stephen. In the past, like take Mark Moyer, for example, this guy who worked at USAID. So he blew the whistle on corruption that he found in the department. And what happened? He was targeted. He had published a book 2 years before, Stephen, and the guy he was reporting, who was at the top of the corruption scandal that he was reporting about, he got moved to, I think, the Department of Defense or something like that. And from there, he activated an investigation into Mark Moyer, the whistleblower, about classified information that he didn't get permission from the government to put in his book that had been out for 2 years. So my point is, this is the kind of behavior that would happen. So they've gone to these kinds of links to prevent it. So now you've got Tulsi and these others coming in there, and they're going to be eager to do that. And here's the other thing. This is the big reason. This is going to destroy the Democrat Party. In particular, yes, the swamp, there are Republicans in there as well, plenty of them, but the Democrat Party's image is built upon being the pro-government party, right? So you need us. We're the good guys. More government is better. You can't survive without us. Well, what are we learning from all of this information? That our government is inherently corrupt and crooked. It's one of the most corrupt in the history of mankind. I don't think that the emperors pillaging Rome was as bad as what we're finding out, and we'll find out about what our own government officials have done to this country and the American taxpayer. And so if your whole image is built upon, hey, you need more government in your life because we're the good guys. Well, now everyone's facing the music and realizing we've been lied to for decades and our government is horrendous. So now all of a sudden you have the Trump movement gaining momentum because he has built his identity, and MAGA is all about restoring the republic to the people. It's not about how great government is. It's about how government gets in the way, how corrupt it is, and how the American people have the capacity to succeed in their own lives if only the government would let them do it. So this is a big problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think the areas that he's going after, and I know that there's Republicans that have not been great, but they go into USAID. What do they find? They find all of these Democrat programs that benefit them that are complete shells, or that are designed to undermine and overthrow the American empire, or that are heavily involved in kickbacks, a voting scheme, going after a sitting president. All of this stuff was being funded with USAID. Do you think that Trump knew that, or do you think somebody guided him? Like, listen, look under this rock, and you're going to find a whole bunch of slimy worms? Or were they just lucky in picking USAID as the first place they investigated?
No, I think he knew this time. He did not know about this, in my opinion, during the first administration. I mean, much of this he didn't know about. We learned about it because of the attacks against him. And so, honestly, the silver lining in them, how do I say this? Stealing, the 2020 election, is that it gave him this license in which he's basically, we've never seen political power like this in not in my lifetime. This is bigger than Reagan. This is bigger than anything I've seen. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity in many ways. But it gave him a lot of time, 4 years, to sit there and assemble a team and think about, what needed to be done. And also, we all as Americans, we talked on this show, you've had all these wonderful guests. Your audience has heard people talk about the Biden administration for 4 years and what they've done to the country. Well, that was revealing as well, because we learned how corrupt Biden was. We learned how corrupt the FBI was. So we knew definitively that we had to go and look at these places where, if the Biden administration hadn't behaved as they had, perhaps if he'd simply been reelected in 2020 and not lost to Joe Biden, I don't think that we'd be in the position we are today to really root out the things that need to be rooted out like we are today. So no, USAID, I mean, that Mark Moyer, that book came out, I think, last year. So, he's just had time to isolate some of these instances and get people around him that say, hey, here's the dirt.
You don't know this, Drew, but I interviewed Mark Moyer yesterday.
Oh, my man.
So
yeah.
just yesterday. And we had to cut it at like 25 minutes because he was actually going to testify to a subcommittee about the evil of USAID. Okay, going back to my original question, the second half of it, I hate to say it, but the US dollar isn't as strong as it used to be, and our government is the reason why. Under President Biden, the dollar has lost 26% of its buying power. You feel it, I feel it. Meanwhile, inflation is still out of control. They're trying to disrupt Trump coming into office, and the cost of everything is up. But so are gold and silver. Think about this. If you had to bet on what would be worth more down the road, 10, 15, 20 years from now, would you bet on gold or would you bet on the US dollar? History tells us it's going to be gold. Let the team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you protect your family's future. Their level of professionalism is second to none, and they will answer all of your questions. Maybe you're just getting started, or maybe you already have a 401k or an IRA, or maybe mom and dad have asked you to help them preserve their wealth so that they can pass it on to you. Colonial Metals Group can help. We have put together a special offer for my audience. You can get up to $7,500 in free silver, a free safe. Just give them a call at 800-807-2143 or click the link down below, colonialmetalsgroup.com/Gardner. They are amazing, and so is gold. Why do you think Mitch McConnell betrayed the Republican Party? Is this revenge against Trump because he's still mad about January 6th? Is this because he doesn't want to be investigated? Because now Elon Musk is saying, why is Mitch McConnell worth $85 million on a public servant salary? I don't know. Why do you think he voted against Tulsi Gabbard?
Yeah, I think it's layered. I think the simplest reason that isn't the only reason is that he is the definitive Republican rhino swamp creature. And so, so it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, you are having your coffers filled by the same people on the outside or on the inside. Of course, I'm sure he's been part of the grift. His wife, Ms. Chow, she's been the beneficiary of government contracts with her, family's, shipping company or whatever it is. So this is how these people work, right? They come into government as servants, and they have all these other companies, or their spouses, for example, have these companies that become the beneficiaries of these rich government contracts. So it's in plain sight. But I think that also Mitch McConnell, I mean, he's a petty guy. I don't know how much of his mental acumen is left. It's on the one hand, it's disgusting, and on the other hand, it's sad as well. It's kind of like a Joe Biden thing, although all the damage Joe Biden did to this country, I actually don't have much sympathy for him. But Mitch McConnell's in a similar place now, and he's been around forever. And he represents the old guard. I mean, look, he's the same kind of politician as Mitt Romney, and they hate Trump because he is a disruptor. And here's the main thing. I really realized this last year at CPAC, Stephen. I was just kind of wandering around talking to people and doing my thing, my PR thing, and I realized how the ecosystem works in DC, because you have the U.S. government, right, the taxpayer, trillions of dollars that are taken out of our pockets that go to Washington, D.C. without accountability. And so you have an entire group of people out there that don't even work for the government necessarily, but they're government adjacent. Maybe they're NGOs, like in the case with USAID, and they are becoming millionaires, getting paid tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands in this case, in that case, because this grift is going on. And Trump came in and look, what is he doing? He's ending the grift. So obviously, I mean, I've tried to explain this to people. It's not forgivable, but if your whole livelihood is dependent upon corruption, which many livelihoods are, right? If that's how you make your living, if somebody comes in office and says, hey, it doesn't matter how the money's coming in, but they say, hey, I'm cutting you off. Well, your life is going to be, thrown upside down. So, this is why you had this pushback and you had. So anyway, that's the deal with Mitch McConnell. I mean, he's a crooked politician who's not a servant of the people. And he was in an immense place of influence and power. And he's losing that. All these people are losing their influence. And these are all, I wouldn't call Mitch McConnell an alpha, I don't think, the turtle there. But, he's got that mentality. He's savage. And these are the people you're dealing with. And so, they want to fight for what's theirs. And they don't care if it screws the American people.
Yeah. Well, if DC is a swamp, Mitch McConnell is the snapping turtle of the DC swamp. Speaking of that, I saw something on the internet. They found a snapping turtle that's several hundred years old. And the reason they knew that is there was like a lead bullet from the Civil War lodged in its shell. Isn't that crazy? I didn't know they lived that long. Anyway, that's Mitch McConnell. Okay, so a couple of months ago, President Trump was Hitler, like the literal reincarnated Adolf Hitler. Now, new polling shows that even Democrats are pleased with what he's doing to clean up the government. So how did this guy go from Hitler to Mr. Clean? And now people are happy. They're saying, let's give him an opportunity to go do what he says he's going to do. There's like this like grace period of we like what he's doing. Give him some runway.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's classic. You tell somebody the sky is falling, right? To keep them indoors. The last thing you want is for that person to actually step outside and look up at the sky, take the spaghetti whatever pot off their head, and realize that they're safe. And that's what's happened here. It's like the law of diminishing returns as well. Maybe that Hitler line was effective, and it was like, I mean, you can compare the 2016 administration, 2017, the first one, to this one, and it's night and day. None of those accusations or attacks work anymore. The Democrat Party is not popular. In fact, they have like record disapproval numbers. And I've never seen anything like this, and it makes me so excited, Stephen, because under the Biden administration, there were so many failures, and we talked about them so many times that I couldn't even keep track of them. And now it's flipped, and there are so many successes. They're so fast and furious and amazing that I can't even keep track of the successes in the Trump administration now. But Trump has been around for a long time, right? I mean, they have. It's like kind of like the climate change people, right? I mean, they've been saying that the Manhattan should be underwater and the Maldives should be underwater, and meanwhile they buy their beachfront estates, and somehow Manhattan still isn't underwater, and we're still alive, even though Al Gore told us the ice caps would be gone. Now we found out they're expanding. So that's what's happening here. Is reality is setting in because they are losing to time.
Yeah. Gosh, you're so right on so many things. I just think the calling him Hitler was sensational. By the time you call somebody Hitler 1,000 times and they haven't shown any sign of being Hitler, you kind of go, well, you know what? Maybe this is not exactly what I thought. And now I'm just so grateful to see that so many of them are saying, okay, let's just give them some time, because I think a lot of them are going, wait a minute. I pay taxes, and my taxes have been going to what? Yeah. Like, nobody likes finding out they've been lied to. Nobody likes finding out they've been tricked. But nobody, and I mean nobody, likes finding out they've had their money stolen and then misused. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of Americans right now. President Trump is now in office, but Biden's damage and policies are still wreaking havoc on most people's kitchen table issues. A lot of us are carrying really high credit card balances that charge over 20% interest. These are huge payments we have to make each and every month. It's time to get rid of those. So homeowners, if you've been waiting to figure out how to get your finances in order, you need to call my friends at American Financing today. American Financing's salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners like you tap into their home equity to get out from under these high interest debts. They're saving their average customer $800 a month. This is huge. Savings of this kind every month should make the decision really easy. It takes all of 10 minutes and it's no cost obligation for a free consultation with one of their experts on how to help you save money today. And if you start now, you might be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So call my friends at American Finance. So call my friends at American Financing today. Give them a call at 888-686-8030. Again, that's 888-686-8030, or click on the link down below.
One more thing, Stephen, I was just thinking about as you were talking. One other thing that's happened, which I point out because it should be encouraging to Americans, I think the average political acumen of the American citizen has gone up drastically over the last number of years. People have started paying attention and educating themselves. And so, the whole Hitler accusation, or he's a combination of, Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin, these are just names that honestly, a lot of people just have like a general understanding of. They're generic names, though, that just represent evil. I mean, when you call Trump Hitler, like, what are you talking about? Because he's like a friend of Israel. So obviously it's not the Jew thing that makes him Hitler. So what is it? He's a dictator. That's it. So I think as people have paid attention to, those names don't mean anything anymore because people realize how just vapid the accusations are. They're meaningless, and people don't see it.
Yeah. Let me read you, Drew, something from the Progressive Policy Institute. This is a far left organization. They're even admitting Democrats are messing up big time right now. This is what they had to say. Trump occupies the high ground in this fight, which is probably why he and Musk picked it. If voters dislike anything, it's bureaucracy and foreign aid. And USAID is a 10,000 employee bureaucracy housed in a palatial building on prime downtown real estate that spends $40 billion a year on other countries. They then say it looks so bad to the American people to see Democrat leaders defending stolen money, fraud, and corruption. Like, if like, the cat's out of the bag and it's fraud and corruption and stolen money and $40 billion spent on other nations, why on earth would you continue to defend fraud? They're like, you guys are so stupid, you're going to lose elections going forward.
Yeah, we've seen this from the Democrat Party on other fronts, too. I do want to talk about the USAID in particular on the corruption, but we've seen this with the, transgender agenda. That was deeply unpopular. A lot of Democrats came out after the election and said, we need to change our position on this. And Democrats have doubled down on that, despite knowing the evidence. Their own polling tells them, hey, this is not a winning issue for us culturally. They double down. They're doing that with all these things. I mean, you're seeing Disney and other places that are starting to sort of ditch DEI. Now, they're not good people. They just put their finger up where the wind is and they feel like the momentum's shifting, so they're changing. But when it comes to the corruption, I mean, one of the reasons, of course, they feel like they can't come down on it is because, of course, it's the Democrats who are the recipients of the money laundering scheme. So it's incriminating of themselves, and they know that to some extent. So there's something in themselves that isn't intellectual. They're not capable of doing what you say, which is the wise decision, which is just to come down on it, even gaslight the American people about it like they usually do. Like, God, this corruption's crazy, and just make it their issue. But they don't have the political, calculus anymore. I think they did. They used to be pretty expert, publicists, if you will, lying about their image and their history with slavery and so on and so forth. But this is an astonishing thing because this is not a Republican and Democrat issue, even though it's Democrats who seem to be behind the vast majority of the corruption and money laundering and so on and so forth. It's an American problem. And whether you're Republican, independent, whether you don't vote, whatever, this is your money and it's not in your best interest. And it's outrageous because if this happened in the private sector, all of these people would be in jail like Bernie Madoff. That's been used before in the past. Like, Hitler, this Bernie, Social Security. But this is true. I mean, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And we are only scratching the surface of it. But like, how many thousands of bureaucrats, politicians? I mean, we talked about Joe Biden and what he did, and more information is coming out now about actually tying him to corruption, money changing hands directly as it relates to Romania and his son. But all of these people are acting like Joe Biden. All of these politicians act like Joe Biden. This is something that's happening every day for decades. Hillary Clinton's the beneficiary of this. It's the Clintons. I mean, you go on, and it's so. What's so frustrating to me, Stephen, it's been right in front of our faces for so long, right? The question you talked about earlier. Okay, Mitch McConnell, he's been a public servant for 26 years, however long it's been in the Senate, and he's worth $85 million. You go down the list, right? You see these individuals whose stock portfolios defy the market expectations. You're lucky if you get 8% return, and these guys are getting like 26%. Nancy Pelosi and Republicans as well, and it's right there. And there was nobody to come in and actually call it out and say what it was, which is criminality. And so now you have that happening. And look, I mean, these people are freaking out. But that's why the Democrats are really putting up this front and this fight. And they're not acknowledging it though, because they're hoping. And it's futile, but they're hoping that they can somehow win this argument and convince people that it's not corruption, because the house of cards is coming down, and it's mostly Democrats who are going to be found guilty.
Yeah, it's never a good sign when you're upset that they're turning off the corruption versus the corruption, and that it's like. That is the big telltale sign is like, hey, you can't stop sending that corrupt money to that corrupt organization. That's not good for me, Okay, let me switch gears with you. Representative Mike Lawler, a Republican in the House of Representatives from New York, said Democrats are so caught off guard by Trump that they're shifting their focus in New York to making it legal for illegals to vote in the next election, or if nothing else, counted in the upcoming census. Why do this? Are they that desperate for votes that they would betray citizens in order to use non-citizens to stay in power?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, that story is novel about them, of course, proposing. That's where they're going to go. But that's something that Democrats have been moving towards for a long time, openly talking about that. California, does that where I live. Anyway, got to move out. Anyway, so here I am in California. But yeah, I mean, I think that what this represents right now is this is some kind of acknowledgement right now that the Democrat Party does not have hope. And if you look at their party, I mean, who's taking the baton? I mean, the point is, I mean, go through a list of people, AOC, wannabe Barack Obama 2.0, in the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, who thinks he's Dr. Seuss every time he gets a chance to speak. He's trying to rhyme. What's her name? Jasmine Crocker, or what? I forget her name, but she's one of the biggest lunatics in politics right now. They get to platform, but they don't have anybody. And they're not willing or capable to your point again of changing course. Like they don't seem capable of reinventing themselves. This moment in history, and I don't want them to reinvent themselves, Stephen. I don't want them to listen to this show and this episode and take our advice, because I want them to be extinct. Because America will be successful when the Democrat Party no longer has an ounce of political power, and they're moving in that direction steadily. And we have to focus on the midterms and things like that, and make sure we maintain and even increase our leads. But it's just a very hopeless landscape and the Democrats did this to themselves, Stephen. They created Donald Trump. They didn't create him like they created Barack Obama, right? Like a figment of your imagination, the media creation. But I mean, They created the so-called monster that honestly all of us are. And by monster, I mean American patriot that is taking back the country and getting actively engaged. They are responsible for creating this movement and creating Trump. So, I mean, this is what you get, and there's no sympathy for them anymore. I mean, you know, they basically dropped a nuclear weapon on the American people over the last 4 years and in this election, and we all survived. And so now they want us to pretend like they didn't do that and that, you know, they're the victims. No, we are not forgetting. And I just, you know, people are not really questioning Trump. I mean, honestly, Stephen, if Trump was a terrible person, which he's not, thankfully, you know, this could be a bad situation for America, to be honest, because can you imagine if the left had the kind of political capital that we have right now, what the country would look like? But we have it. And we need to use it and run, you know. I mean, I've just never seen somebody move so feverishly. Even the reporters are saying, you know, we can't keep up because under the Biden administration, you know, the weekends, nothing ever happened. And now, I mean, this is 7 days a week, all day long. Trump is working, and it's impressive.
Yeah, Elon Musk is literally sleeping in his Washington, D.C. office so that he can work as much as possible. His team, they were only hired if they were willing to work 100-hour week. I mean, it's like they're moving faster than a Fast and Furious movie. To circle back to your joke earlier. Okay, final question. I appreciate you coming on. I had the privilege of interviewing James Comer, who led the investigation against Joe Biden. I asked him on behalf of my community, what happened? Like, why didn't we get Biden? And he said, we never ran out of crimes to investigate. We ran out of time to impeach him. Do you think now that Biden is gone and the White House legal team has no incentive to protect him anymore, he doesn't have the unlimited purse of the federal government, do you think we'll actually get to the truth, even if no one ever goes to jail, and at least his reputation will be damaged as the awful president that he was?
So jail is really largely irrelevant because what we really need is, yes, to get to the bottom of this. So it makes me, it encourages me to see what they're finding and looking into as it relates to Romania. They have to continue this investigation because it's not just important that the American people know, but this is an important piece of the larger strategy to destroy the Democrat Party forever. Because the American people, I mean, yes, Joe Biden has kind of disappeared into the ether. He's just, he's backstage. He's never coming out. You know, nobody talks about him anymore after 4 years of destruction. But, you know, this is one of those, how do I say this? You know, it's like one of these like statues they erected, right? Of, you know, Joe Biden's greatness. You know, they think they got us. You know, Joe Biden's not corrupt. Comer and Republicans were lying. And so for this to be actually finished, it just puts a exclamation point on the last 4 years, and it piles on to all of the other things Democrats did to their own voters, right? When they hid Joe Biden's cognitive decline from the American people, when they sent him out there to debate, and then when he failed miserably against Donald Trump, they, after that day telling us how great Biden was and how mentally acute he was, then they pulled the rug out from under him and replaced him with Kamala Harris after forcing the Democrat voters to go out and vote for Joe, right, as their candidate. These things are adding up, and they're making the Democrat Party deeply unpopular. So if you already have this skepticism brewing in the country, especially amongst kind of Democrats starting to move towards sanity, towards the light, this is one of those things that will not be forgotten. And it will stain the Democrat Party's legacy because the Democrat Party today, right now, is still the party of Joe Biden. I'm sorry. There's no one that's replaced him. That's the last thing people remember. That was the last Democrat that was in office. So if you can prove to the American people definitively that the FBI and the same corrupt media covered up and prevented you from learning more about Joe Biden, his corruption during his administration, it's over for the Democrats. I'm sorry. And they have no ground to stand on. Because they hold the Republican Party to this moral standard of perfection. And we're not doing that anymore, which is helping us win. But they cannot lecture. They don't have a leg to stand on about any issue in the country when this stuff comes out.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how they got away with this so long. It's not like there was a organization secretly funneling the mainstream media millions and millions of dollars to keep up a narrative. It's not like any of that was happening. No. Drew, thank you so much for coming on. I know how busy you are with a young family and running a major company. Thank you. If people want to follow you online, where can I push them?
Yeah, so they can go to my Substack, which is drewallen.substack.com, or they can find me on X at Drew Thomas Allen.
Okay, I will put both of those direct links down below. Thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again in the future. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, Stephen.